we have selected for Law, Leadership and India Inc. As a starting point was from the objective that the legal role today, what you see about, has changed more to a leadership role. All right. You had various trends which happened in India. You had some scams which were reported. At that point of time, this is previous to 2008 and all trends where your legal, compliance, ethics, governance, government affairs, sanctity of the legal compliances and authenticity was all particularly considered to be a desk job. When 2008, the financial crisis happened, and then it was followed by some scams which were also in India, 2G scam, etc., where the importance of legal compliances, ethics and governance became a highlight, and the legal role, which was earlier 10-15 years back to be a desk job for legally vetting the documents, etc., is now converted into a digital role, is now converted into a leadership role, where the expectation is that you not only advise on day-to-day basis, you are the daily advisor of the chief executive of your company, you are the advisor of the promoter of the company, you are the advisor of the board of the company to keep a sanctity of a long-term running organization. Now, when you have garnered this particular reputation of leadership, of course it comes with the challenges which are put in there, all right? Because there is a business reality, there is a business profits to it. Most of the scams which were done for juggernaut in the field of accounting field, etc. And therefore, the role which is now played by a general counsel or a legal professional has become dynamic, where you stood by it for the legal and compliance part of it, so that you don't spoil your reputation in terms of legal non-compliance, but also your reputational risk of existence. Leave aside the stock market demolition which can happen when something goes wrong in that nature. All right. So that's the broader leadership perspective we are going to talk about. I have an elite panel with me. We have debated about 18 questions and selected some best of the 14 for you, subject to the time restrictions, where we'll discuss about the challenges which have been faced. So the panel which is sitting here has been on the wildfire, where there have been some good days or bad days, where there have been challenges and appreciation, where there have been criticism, but you have stuck to your point, where there has been a team morale issue versus your team mentoring, where there have been issues of authentic leadership as well as corporate politics involved, where there have been learnings and failures, sound judgment versus business risk, and decision making versus the job risk which you are carrying. All right. So this is the wildfire which the elite panel has gone through it. I have the best of the legal minds in the corporate world sitting with me. I will just give introduction part to every one of you, and then we'll start with a question. So we will start with Deepak. My introduction is already done. We'll start, Deepak, with you. 30 seconds introduction, and then we go to the question answer. Go ahead, Deepak.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Thank you for having me here this morning. My name is Deepak Acharya. I am the General Counsel, Group General Counsel for Aditya Birla Management Private Limited. I handle group-related matters for Aditya Birla Group. And again, it's really a pleasure having all of you here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepak. Yes, Akshat.
Hi, I am Akshat Khetan, founder of AU Corporate Advisory and Legal Services. We are a full-time firm into dispute resolution, mergers, acquisition, and trying to promulgate and help corporate India fly on its own wings.
Sure.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, ET Legal World, for having us here today. It's an absolute honor. I'm Manjari Chaudhary, General Counsel for Maruti Suzuki India Limited. My responsibilities are looking after the entire legal and compliance spectrum for the organization, as well as, advising the management and the board. Thank you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Pathik Arora. I am the General Counsel for Senvion. since we are a wind turbine original equipment manufacturers, OEM as we say, I take care of the entire legal contracts, secretarial compliance, intellectual property as a part of my role as General Counsel. Thank you.
Hi, good morning all. My name is Prashant Marathe. So I work with Sula Vineyards Limited, so popularly known as Sula Wines. I'm working as a General Counsel, Vice President, Legal License and Compliance. So take care of the entire group's legal activities as well as the compliance activities. Thank you.
Hi, good morning everyone. My name is Sujit Jain. I am Chief Legal and Regulatory Officer for Nykaa, an e-commerce platform. My role includes managing legal, regulatory, corporate affairs, company secretary, compliance, and public policy issues. And look forward to working with my colleagues on this panel and look forward to engaging with all of you. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Just a detail about my company. I'm the Group General Counsel for Cardecco Group, which has Cardecco, Insurance Deco, and other fintech and insurance and financial services businesses under their belt. It's a 1.2 billion unicorn of India. That's about me. Just going to the first question, starting with Deepak, you. We are on the law, leadership, and the India Inc., where India Inc. is growing milestones in terms of the global recognition. The role of legal has become so critical and important that, compliances today are looked upon not only in the direction of your legal compliance, ethics, governance, but from an ESG perspective also, your contracts have now started speaking about that, your term sheets also have clauses where you will follow guidelines of ESG, etc. In this heated environment of being a general counsel of one of the biggest groups in India, Aditya Birla Group, as a general counsel, how do you balance business versus governance in a situation where business is about profits and risk, and you are a gatekeeper for the internal stakeholder, be it your shareholders, promoters, board, or independent directors, who expect you to protect interest of the group and create vociferous awareness on legal compliance, governance, risk management, and mitigation? Deepak, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Zamira. It was a fantastic question. As a true lawyer, let me first start with a caveat. The views that I'm expressing here are my personal views, not that of my organization. So I think arguably Peter Drucker, who's the considered as a management guru of the modern management principles, have said that, if you leave organization naturally, there are three things that happen very naturally in the organization. Confusion, complexity, and underperformance. For everything else, you need leadership. In the field of corporate legal as well, I think General Counsel plays a very important leadership role in terms of managing compliances with the right balance. The first and foremost that I have realized and I have practiced, and I would encourage all of you to think it in that direction, is to do the right thing. We will face several questions, several issues where you will have gray areas, where the law will not be clear, where there are multiple interpretations possible. But as general counsels, as lawyers, our role is actually to do what is the right thing, do the right thing. And that requires leadership in steering companies, in steering business teams to take the right decisions. Again, in my 30 plus years of career, I've seen business leaders who have painfully realized the real cost of non-compliance. They used to think compliance is very expensive, but they've learned the hard way that the cost of non-compliance is even more expensive. Okay, so in a long run, if your organizations are non-compliant, the cost is very high for the company. certainly, as a general counsel, one needs to find the right balance. And one thing which practically I have used for a number of years now is to have a very right balance of courage and empathy, or courage and consideration. Why do I say courage and consideration? As a lawyer, as a general counsel, you have to have a courage to stand up and say, this is not in accordance with the law, this should not be done in this way. Right? At the same time, we should have an empathy, or we should have a consideration that if this cannot be done in this way, then what is the right way in which it can be done? I can't just stand up and say that you can't do it, but I have to figure out the rightful way within which business can operate. And I call this, in many a times, people have heard me saying that it's a freedom within the framework. So business will have a freedom within the framework of law. The moment they go out of the framework of law, it's a big risk for the company. So have courage and have empathy. The last point I want to make today on this topic is, managing independent directors on the board of the company is a science and an art, both. The reason I say this is that independent directors come to the board with certain expectations, and they have certain objectives. Their objective is to look at the interest of minority shareholders and make sure that the company is governed properly. And the people that I have worked with, who have been independent directors on my board and my companies, where I've had the pleasure of supporting the board, is that they look at what are the non-compliances, if any, and what is your plan to get to the compliance. If you give them an open-ended plan where there is no timeline, because everybody will have some or the other non-compliances. Let's take it that not everybody is 100% compliant. But so long as you have a plan to get to the compliance within reasonable time, independent directors will be fine with it. So make sure that if you have non-compliances in the organization, you identify those red flags and try to become compliant as soon as possible, and keep your independent director or your audit committee, which is where these kind of questions generally come up, fully informed. And for me, that has worked very well. Thank you.
Wonderful. I think courage, empathy, and a plan to be compliant as fast as possible under the present circumstances. Very nice that, we have a quote from a writer which says, leadership is inherently good in every situation, but challenging to define. All right? So I have with me Pathik today. Pathik is General Counsel for Senvion India. Pathik, how can a General Counsel be an excellent advisor and business-savvy partner in the company's leadership while build a team with same attitude in a stretch budget and enable them to assess high priorities, face challenges, strategize and equip the legal function to support the business operation and coordination with other corporate departments, that also at a global level?
Thanks, Amir. So I'll just take a cue from what Justice Shri Krishna said. He spoke about evolution of mankind, evolution of society. I think most of us sitting here have been really fortunate that similarly there has really been evolution of legal profession, more so in-house counsels in the last 2.5 decades. And we not only have seen that evolution, but most of us have been part of that evolution. And that is how we are where we are today. This, I'm sure, would not have been easy for many of us. Gone are those days when we used to be a lawyer used to be there in a company to give or to interpret laws for the company. Today we have seen that evolution happening from that stage to today, where we are. We are more seen as business enablers. We are sitting in the boardrooms, advising boards on day-to-day basis. Now, which of course means that it brings a lot of challenges with us. One thing that, as Zamir, you asked about how to enable the team and how to enable yourself to be able to, to be able to up to it for the challenge. I think one thing that I always do or have been doing, and I always advise my team to follow, is to spend as much time as possible understanding business, spend time with business teams, understand business, understand their nuances. And then, that is when you really become someone in the company who people look forward, who especially business teams look forward to, with confidence and comfort that a problem on the legal side will be taken care of without really disrupting business. I mean, today we all work on, in very competing environments, global environments. We need to be there to think on the feet. You just can't go back. You just can't every time say that I will go back and let you know, try to find an answer, let you know. You've got to be thinking on your feet. You've got to be thinking at that moment. So, and lead by example. I mean, for the team, the best thing is to lead by example. Do what is right. Of course, you have to be, sometimes, you can be seen as a little hands-on or control freak, but don't have that courage. And have the courage to say no to business where things cannot really possibly happen, or tell them alternates to how things can be done. I think that is my bit on that, Zamir.
Excellent. I think you are more stressing on understanding the business, which is a general feedback we have received 15, 20 years from the CEOs of the company and all of the management, that understand business. You have a right to say no, but the point is that understand the business and the nuances, and then figure out whether it is legally possible, not possible, whether there can be a way out, or otherwise be straight across the place and say what is right. All right. One of the examples of the leadership pressure, because today we are on the leadership and India Inc. on the legal fraternity side of it, General Counsel's perspective. One of the leadership pressures, while in our days at Harvard Business School, we had a case study on Larry Culp. Larry Culp was CEO of Amgen Pharmaceutical at that point of time. And the kind of pressure which we all face at a leadership level, he was expressing the same. And he says, there are some days in my company where I really feel on the criticism that I don't deserve to be a CEO of the company. I don't deserve to be in the corporate life. But then I go home, go to bed, get up in the morning, see the mirror and say, hi handsome, and go to the work next day. So that's the kind of pressure, depressurization which he was doing, all right? So that's the kind of leadership and the pressure role we are now, and we are dealing with the general counsels at that point of time, okay? My next question is to Sujit Jain, Chief Legal and Regulatory Officer, NICA. Sujit, you have been in this field for multiple years with multiple companies, advising the best of the companies. How has the role of general counsel and lawyers evolved in last 10, 15 years from just a desk job operating on vetting and interpretation of legal contracts, litigations, etc., to terminologies, to now sensitizing the business on legal compliance, ethics, governance, even ESG, and a legally sustainable model, business model, with accountability to the promoter, management and board for legal sanctity and checks and balances in the businesses globally, with your immense experience. Sujit.
Thank you very much, Zamir. So I'm going to focus more on GC aspect, and when I use the word GC, I mean the legal leadership, both from the in-house perspective and maybe a bit of nuance for the law leadership in general, because Tusharji and Justice C. Krishna spoke about the India and the legal leadership in general. I think I'll dwell what I know more. In US, most of the GCs occupies the corner seat, right? That's how it's evolved in that country. Obviously, because that's the most advanced country on the earth. As per the research which was conducted by Spencer Stuart, an international global executive search firm, They did a research on top 150 companies in India. And as per them, only 40% of them have the corner seat. I'm not talking about the board seat, I'm talking about the seat in the top leadership team of an organization. And which itself is actually a significant progress. This number would have been far, far lower a few years ago. Now, I'm also going to dwell a little bit more into the practical part of in-house and the GC's life and how and therefore how this role has evolved. The CHROs and the CFOs, right? Invariably, let me be very candid and honest with you, that we compete with those people for that seat in a corporate. Now, obviously, those roles have actually, in the larger scheme of organizations, evolved more than the role of a GC or a CLO. For various reasons, the nexus to business as well. So therefore, obviously, I believe there is much more for us to cover. While it is a great silver lining, I think I'll get into a bit of that in a few seconds. But that's the point number one. So point number two is actually why. So why this evolution of GCs becomes so relevant? So what has happened in last 10, 15 years or let's say last 2 decades, whereby the GC has become very important, very relevant? First, in my view, is the nature of laws. If you see the way the laws have evolved in last 10, 15 years or 20 years, prior to that, the discussion was more about changes in the contract law or in the litigation or a transfer of property when I started my career. Or the amendment into the CPC and CRPC, and maybe once in a while a change in the Companies Act. Today we are talking about a very sophisticated evolution of laws. Corporate laws and economic laws is what I'm referring to. In past, for example, the laws like IBC, that is not a law, that is economic reform. And we have an opportunity to interpret and dissect that, and we have seen that how that has changed the face of this country. Competition law. There are, by the way, a lot of jurisdictions in the world where competition law has not evolved, but in India it has gone to another level. And when I look back and think about it, actually there are very few countries in the world now we can compare in terms of actually the evaluation of law, given the context of size of democracy. The smallest country, fair enough, like Australia, Hong Kong, Singapore, but when I'm talking about the larger democracies, there are very few. And that's the reason most of the time we look at US and so on and so forth. The competition law. Intellectual property law sophistication. E-commerce regulations. On the Transparency Right to Information Act, while it's come back long ago, but I think the importance has gained more in last 10, 15 years. On the manufacturing side, electricity laws. Because of the green energy, the electricity laws have become more relevant to the business and economics than just a distribution of energy. Mining reforms. In my last organization, I used to work for Ultratech. Again, the changes are not more the economic in nature. And now, obviously, the digital law and the digital regulation, what we are seeing. If you think about all these laws and the changes of all of this is a direct and more correlation to the business than what was there in the past, and therefore the role of GC has evolved, point number one. Point number two, enforcement. What has happened in last 10, 15 years is the enforcement in this country has gone to unprecedented level. Right? I don't want to go into detail of that, but we are see the results of that. Point number three, the role of judiciary. Justice C. Krishna spoke about the role of judiciary. The substance has become more important than the letter of the law. So invariably, our ability to find the loopholes have got minimized. And therefore, the role of GC has increased much more. Fourth point, sophisticated of business models. Look at the business models, those have evolved in last 10 to 15 years, on the digital side. Everything is getting disrupted, right? Every model is getting disrupted by the technology. And therefore, that is putting a lot of pressure on the organizations to look at the law carefully. Now, in my experience, what this has done to the founders and promoters, because our role in that sense or the evolution is linked to how the founders and promoters and the CEOs and MDs of organization think. So all of these 4 or 5 themes which I spoke about, this theme has made an impact on them to get thinking, hey, this requires a different skill. This requires a different expertise. This requires a different kind of a mind to navigate me, dissect this for me, and make me feel safe. This has given the rise to the kind of the skills which are required for the GCs. Clarity and ambiguity. If I have to speak about one issue in my 25 plus years experience across organization, across sectors, across stages of the organization I work for, I would only speak about the biggest role today we have as GCs, and I'm sure my colleagues on the dais and across the dais would agree, is seeking clarity in ambiguity. Look at what I spoke about. What this has given a rise to is a very complexity. Justice Sri Krishna spoke about the chaos on road. I'm talking about the chaos on business models, chaos in regulations. And therefore, that is one skill which has become important. Second point, complex problem solving. Third and most important, crisis management. In all what we have seen here, one of the most important role of the GC is actually become crisis management. And let me tell you that at the practical level, that is where you also add a lot of value, and that is where you gain trust and respect of the promoter, founders, and the CEOs. Last and important point, what has happened in the evolution of this GC, and the requirement is the multidisciplinary approach to solve problem. A lot of my colleagues on this dais are also lawyer and company secretary, and across the dais also, right? But it is not just a law and company secretary, but also your ability to read business, your ability to look at the numbers and the finance, and the combination of that. It's there, it's available independently. But the interdisciplinary approach has become more relevant in this VUCA world, and therefore the GC's role has evolved. And my last point is, this is today, what about future? What has got here today will not get to the next level. There are humongous opportunity for us to evolve and to add lot more skill, the few I spoke about. The corporate governance, risk management, ESG, and trust and safety. Because the fraud, bad faith is becoming a bigger issue now in the corporate and business world. But these are all adjacencies which are very, very close to the GC, and therefore in times to come, these skills will take us to the next level, and this basically will give us more and more corner seats. And the role of the GCs, there are 2 fundamental points in the future which will change a lot. One is our ability to embrace technology. Because the second is the public policy and advocacy. So these are the 2 big themes which in my view have already emerged. They are there on the surface, and given that the India is going to play or is playing a transformative role on the digital regulation in the world, the kind of regulation which we are seeing today on the digital side, the way the ministers are betting, have you ever seen the ministers betting on the law in the way our senior ministers on the IT side are betting? Unimaginable. This actually means that we will set, I repeat my word, we will set the regulation for the world on the digital through this country, through this regime. And therefore, the opportunity for all of us sitting in this room is humongous. Thank you very much, Jameen.
Super. I think excellent. I think what you have stated is that, laws have evolved a lot. Enforcement has gone really up. Crisis management has now become part of legal management. And in terms of government affairs, it's going to increase with the government engagement on the sector. While we talk about the criticality of the role of legal, it's become now part of the business also, is integrated with the business. The level has gone high in terms of the laws which are now coming in. The role of the GC has also now increased. One of the greatest examples you can see is Brad Smith of Microsoft, who was general counsel for the company for years and years, and today he is the vice chairman and president of Microsoft. All right. So when this role has increased, and I have stalwart panel member Manjuri with me, Manjuri, what is your view as a portfolio of general counsel now includes not only legal compliance but also ethics, governance, ESG, part of in-house committees like POSH committees, etc. while handling your day-to-day affairs of legal, including protection of interest of the company, promoter and investor, and many a times thereafter, elevation to the board, audit committee, and other committees, right up to chairing of the board, do you see the role of General Counsel now expanding more far away and engaging even higher in line of importance as in the past, which was not there? What's your take on that?
This is a very interesting and also a bit of controversial question.
Right.
Let me take a step back before I address this. My fellow panelists have been talking about the evolving role of the General Counsel, and I think we do understand that over the last decade or so, or even more, it has really evolved to take a very different nuance, and its contributions to a corporation have changed from just being a mere legal expert to that of an effective and a trusted business partner. And the operative word in that is business partner. When you take a look back, and your question is more, is the General Counsel ready to take a seat at the board? When we think of that, you have to see what does the board really do, So the role of a board is one of advisory and is one of oversight, where they try and grow the business to bring shareholder value, to add to shareholder value, manage the interests of the minorities and investors, all the while making sure that enterprise risk is addressed in the best possible manner, risk is mitigated, crisis is well managed, and there is sound corporate governance in a company. Given this broad, spectrum of what a board does, then when you know this, it becomes a little easier to see how the General Counsel of today is perhaps at the cusp or is nearly ready to take on a role also at the board. And when I say that, I don't mean that in your own company, because that can be a source of a conflict. But I feel that as you grow, you could take on roles in other non-competitive companies, or once you have done with your role as a General Counsel, you can always go in and be a board member in different other companies. But what is the requirement? And are we ready today? The requirements of being on a board are very different from being on the management. Management is more operational, and you are responsible for the day-to-day work of the company. The role in a board is more advisory. But before you can advise, you really need to understand how a company is run. Today's General Counsel, and my fellow colleagues have already alluded to that, the General Counsel does a lot more than just give legal advice. He or she is a partner in business. He or she has to understand the business. He or she has to understand the complexities that can come with it. Necessarily, as to this morning, Justice Sri Krishna very rightly mentioned, that law is just not theory. It's not about looking at rules and regulations. It's about how you apply them to a situation. Therefore, then you can socialize it, and then people can internalize it, and the change happens. That role a General Counsel of today plays day in and day out. And many of you sitting here and my fellow panelists will also agree with me that it's a tight rope to walk. You have the law on one side, which you are aware of, and the regulations, and you have a business and the complexity of the business. And sometimes you really need to balance the law to ensure that it acts in a practical manner. By that, I by no means mean that you should not, keep the company ring-fenced and make sure that it remains compliant. But within that, there are so many nuances which a General Counsel has to play in order to ensure that there is a right balance of the commercial legal balance is maintained. Crisis management, another area, and during the pandemic, you all must have seen how much the General Counsels have also stepped up to take that mantle on and to provide the necessary responses. To show, a General Counsel always is in a listening position. You have to listen, to be a good listener, because everybody comes to you and talks to you of a business problem. Until you understand the business problems, you're not going to be able to give a sound commercial legal response to them. A General Counsel is also expected to have integrity and courage and independence, as Deepak was mentioning earlier. That is also very, very essential because you have to give an independent view, keeping in mind the business. And you also have to have a point of view. Leadership is all about having a point of view, as Justice Sri Krishna was mentioning this morning. Given all these aspects, which we see the modern General Counsel imbibing, and in many, many places doing exceedingly well at that, I would keep that question open to you as well, but in my personal thinking, I think we are fast moving in that direction where we believe that General Counsels can and should have a position at the board at a given point in time. They can lend that gravitas. They have understood the business. They are independent in their thinking. They are courageous, and they also have been good listeners. These are all characteristics that you also need when you are sitting on the board. And the only differentiation that a General Counsel must understand is that you are no longer on the management when you're on the board. You are in an advisory capacity, and you should be able to see the distinction on that. So I think while the jury may be out there, in my personal opinion, I think we are fast heading in that direction.
Completely agree with you. I think we are moving in that direction, and we have been moving pretty fast, especially if I see the period after 2008 onwards, after financial crisis. I think that awareness for legal compliance governance has been awakening, all right? So just takeaways were that, balance your law as well as your business complexities where you are aligning with the opinions. Keep company ring-fenced, including management or crisis management, and have a point of view. Be bold enough to put across your point. Though you may feel that it's critical in the room that everybody senior is sitting, but you are also responsible for making your point of view. While we talk about the legal role has evolved, while we talk about that it's now integrated with the business, while we talk about that it is now elevating even to the position of the board, when you're a general counsel, it's not a single-handed play. You are the Virat Kohli, but you also require the team to play that, all right? Now, when as a general counsel, you are there, you also require your team to equally perform so that, you are managing the legal affairs of the company in a diligent manner, as well as getting a feedback from the business on the state of affairs. The team is so important. My next question is to Prashant. As a general counsel for Sula Vineyards Limited, how do you focus on designing your team, assessing their performance, mentoring team members, and confronting leadership team with objectives, values, and culture towards protecting legal interests of the company and building a company which respects views of domain experts of legal rather than punishes them for speaking the right thing? Prashant, your views.
Yeah. Thank you, Zamir. And this conclave is a leadership conclave. And Honorable Justice Sri Krishna has rightly mentioned that the law is an instrument, and we as a leader are the people or the play to vital role for the implementation of the law, right? And considering this one, the Zamir, you have asked the question which is a multifold question, and wherein the multiple things are involved, and which is the challenging for the general counsels as well as the leaders or the legal heads or whosoever in the organizations leads the legal team. So setting up the legal team is naturally the challenging role need to have to play a general counsels. So there are the certain parameters which I need to highlight step by step. That is one, the job profile, right? So the job profile or the skill set, I can say. The skill set. So the candidate whom we are going to appoint that need to have to understand our business, as Manjari has also mentioned, that the business partner, right? So that person need to have the ability or the capacity to understand the business, right? I am working in the alcobev industry. Naturally, the person who has to understand that alcohol industry's basic concepts. So the skill set is most important. Second, the diversity. So diversity, I can say, in terms of the various ways, whether it is a gender diversity, whether it is a knowledge diversity, or as Sujit has mentioned, there are so many folds are there: IPR, litigation, right, arbitration. So there are the multiple folds or the verticals, I can say, in the legal field. So the candidate whom we are going to appoint, so that need to have that abilities, right? Third, I can say the communication. The communication in terms of the maybe being a general counsels or the leaders, we need to have the stage-wise or the teams who are delivering in their arenas or the vertical. So where that communication reach to the internal, external, or the boards in an appropriate way, whether internal stakeholders or the external clients or the board or the management. So they need to have to understand the communication, the legal communication, I can say per se. Coming to the next, that is a cultural set, right? Cultural set means the organization to organizations, the culture is a different. But since we are working in the legal department, naturally the person need to have to understand that the legal department culture. Just in a lighter note, it is always said that the people never come to the lawyers or the doctors unless they are in a trouble or the problem. So naturally, the board or the internal stakeholders will approach to the legal department when they are facing some trouble or the problem. Naturally, that time the cultural sets to be required, that the SOPs has to be required, right? And the last but not the least, being a leader, we need to have to allow the people to do the mistakes. Because law is not the process where within 1 month or the 1 year, right, or the 10 years, we can learn the everything. So being a leader, we need to have to understand that our team members made a mistakes. We need to have to understand their perspectives and allow them to learn the things. So that's what I can say.
So I think from a values and culture perspective, I think that's the bottom line about it, that, when you develop a team, I think the objective which you're looking at is the person, when you hire at a junior level, the position is that he may have not more knowledge of law, so it's about 30-70. You may look out for more skill sets of his confidence level and speaking. As you go higher in the position, the aspect of knowledge of law is more important, all right? So when you are training or mentoring your teams at your respective ends, number one is the value and culture. Number two is the confidence to speak the right, and that are some of the habits which you can contribute towards their development while they are working for the company and for your team to develop the company and overall benefit the legal interest of the company. That's the bottom line about it. Legal role has become critical. Legal role has become embedded to the business. Legal role is now escalating to a level where you can be also chairing the board post your retirement, and you are also building a super team for performance when you are operating as a general counsel in a corporate environment. However, the fifth important part of a general counsel's life is the law firm, an extended family, all right? Now, when you talk about law firms or when you talk about consulting companies, for example, we have many of the sponsors I was looking at. These are companies which really play a critical role, where you tell the management that, all right, I will take a legal opinion on that aspect, I will take opinion on the data privacy perspective, etc. Akshat, you are heading as a founder AU Corporate Advisory and Legal Services. How general counsels have acted as a catalyst between law firms and India Inc. and provided a stepping stone with support on interpretation of law and regulations as beneficial to the ecosystem while adhering to the compliances required under the laws. Your views?
Zamir, corporate India today is undergoing strategic transmutation every day. Now, why this transmutation is so rapid, so much in positive direction? It is because of the general councils, because they are the first pillars and the centralized pivots within the organization who are leading that. General councils indeed are a vibrant constructive force for every corporate organization to which they belong, who are capable of elevating the whole aspect of their organization into a new realm of knowledge, growth, and enlightenment. I am very happy that all my co-panelists drew references and quotes from what Justice Shri Krishna, my mentor, said. And a jurist is a jurist only when he is quoted and referred. One cue which he gave all of us is internalization of salutary principle. And that is where the role of a general counsel becomes predominant, because they are the communication channel and collaboration channel between the law firms and their own organization. General counsels today are not only restricted to boardrooms, managements, or across the organization, but they are the face of the organization as far as regulation and regulatory practices are concerned of that particular organization, and they are also the flag bearers of those organizations. My advice to all the general counsels is, criticism in crisis is the first successful genesis of a successful contract culminating into charismatic leadership. So don't fear and be empowered to be criticized, as Zamir pointed out earlier, when they express their opinions. And to corporate India, particularly the SME segment, don't make your general counsels as first aid kits, that when you are in problem, you refer to them. They are your everyday necessity to shape and to empower your organization. They are the ones where disputes can be converted into prognostic solutions. So every board of corporate India should have a mandatory position of a good governing general counsel, is my suggestion, is only what I can say, Zamir.
Super. So I think you are more reflecting on the governance side of it, that it's become critical, and non-compliance or non-governance is looked upon as a criminal negligence at this point of time, and therefore you are today as a general counsel with your legal team, a gatekeeper, a whistleblower, and a vociferous awareness creator of the legal and compliances in your company. Be bold enough to make that statement. All right. So I think we are before time, 1 minute before, but we'll take the Q&A.
Yes.
I have my co-host with me. She can go ahead.
I think the panel looks absolutely interesting and more refreshing because it's been so unfiltered and it's been such an eye-opener, to be hearing expertise from each one of you. And I'm sure we would not want to end it, but we would love to open the floor for some specific questions pertaining to any of the speakers that we have joining us for this panel discussion. So if anybody has any specific questions addressing for any of the speakers, please raise your hand. Our team will be coming to you and handing over the mic. Do we have any questions coming in?
I'm Vignesh. I'm the legal counsel for Novista Capital. This is not for anyone specific in the panel. For organizations that are fairly nascent, which are probably 20 people or just starting off, what is the best way to build legal teams, and what are the requirements that you feel are most important to build legal teams?
So one question just before you sit down, I want to ask you, how many times do you hear in this Nave company that we are taking a business calls?
Almost all the time.
Almost every day. All right. So I have my team members who can express their view, otherwise I'll go ahead. Anyone? Manjari? Deepak? Akshat? Anyone?
I think when you have a young company, I think it is the business, you are almost, I would say you are more a business partner than any time else in your career, because you are required to do any and everything, including your own job as a general counsel or as a legal counsel there. I think it's very important if you are heading the legal there to see that, of course, you need support to understand what are the big areas of work that you are looking at there quickly. And is that something that you can manage on your own? At times, in the beginning, I don't think young corporates want a very large team. On the legal side, it's a cost center. They always expect you to be lean. And it also gives the person who's heading the legal function a great opportunity to learn much more very young in your career, and then when you get a chance, as teams become larger or companies become larger, the roles become smaller, in individual roles, because there are so many people to do the same job. But when you are in a young team, I think my advice would be gain as much as you can, because this opportunity perhaps not come again. Second, simultaneously also keep seeing that, of course you can't sort of ground yourself to death on that, because you do need some support. Pick up the big areas and make a good business justification as to why that resource is required. Start small and then gradually grow.
Just to add to what Manjari said, as you just said, nascent organizations, the times have changed. Initially, or maybe 10 years back, you would not find lawyers being really appointed or general counsels being appointed in new businesses. Now times have changed, which means there has been an inherent view that we should do everything right legally. That of course has to go a lot with the evolution of laws, as Sujit said, and enforcements, as Sujit focused about, which also means that it is very important to set the field right. I mean, focus on setting the right processes, the right corporate governance processes in the company right at this stage, because as the business grows, flourishes, it becomes more complex and more difficult to set those processes at that point of time, unless you have already taken care of right at this stage.
Two specific advice from my side. I had joined Reliance when it had invested 5,000 crores as a startup in the digital space. We started building contract right from the word itself. Expectation is that you should have the shortest contract on the universe, all right, that you must be facing on daily basis. So your plan of action or your game plan should be to have a shorter contract, cover maximum risk management, what you can do, ring fence your company, number one. Number two, gradually start building policies, processes, and systems. All right, this will take time. It will be gradual, but I think 6 months, 1 year down the line, you will be able to understand the importance of that in the company. All right, that's specifically from my side. Yes.
I think we can still take one question before we wind up this panel. Do we have any more questions coming in? A quick question. Yes, I can see your hand there and behind as well. We would really appreciate if you can keep it very brief and to the point. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Damandeep Kaur. I'm a legal head at Teleperformance. My question is to any one of you. We know that times have changed for the legal in-house teams, and earlier it was more technical qualification that was important. Over a period of time, with the evolution of the role, what are the soft skills that one should inculcate in the legal team and to have more leadership in the team that you think we should be looking and focusing rather than just the legal knowledge?
So go ahead.
I think you asked my favorite question. Basically, there are two words which I keep saying all the time to my team. One is communication management, another is people management. These two words sounds too broad, but this has been the basis for me, the way I've evolved as a lawyer over years, and that's why I'm saying this, right? People management means people management at all levels. Your peers, your seniors. There's nothing called bosses in this world now. It's all maker and checker. So I don't like the word boss. Okay. So it's, your seniors, your external stakeholders, your internal stakeholders. So that is very important. And deal with everyone in the style what they are, not your style. So bad start, right? So that's one thing you need to look for in the people stakeholder management part. The second and the most important for lawyer is the people communication management. Communication management. How you are writing and how you are speaking is very important. Speak the language of the person you are addressing to. If you're talking to a CFO, you need to know people on the other side you're addressing, right? Look at the counsel, they have mastered that art, right? So, by the way, it is half of the law and half of the advocacy in the court. Why? The question they would ask you, okay, kaun sa bench hai? Acha, okay, where is the judge from? Okay, is it from High Court or District Court? Okay, what is his background? What is the background? He's not getting into the new, what he's trying to understand, or she is trying to understand that who is that person I'm going to address to, because they're human being. I believe the same thing applies in the day-to-day work as a counsel also. Also what you write, how you write. These two skills, in my opinion, have made a big difference. Of course, your knowledge of law is hygiene.
All right. So just 10 seconds to add from a Harvard Business School. That's the focus they have on the soft skill. Number one, focus on your leadership and the leadership skills which you're developing in your team. Number two, always follow a strategy, all right, in everything what you do. Number four is your culture and values. Number three is your culture and values. Number four is your operational efficiencies. And number five is your execution. Execute. You can have discussions, but execute. So these are 5 skill sets.
And have that calmness, because most of the times people will come to you as if, if you don't act today or now, heaven is going to fall, a tsunami will come or something will happen. So have that calmness.
And
so that
love and enjoy your work. All right, once it gets over, go home. You come back tomorrow fresh and be ready for facing the world.
Zamir, can I just add one more important thing? I think 2, in fact. One is learn to navigate. It's extremely important. You will be walking on a bed of mines almost all the time. It is an art in how not to allow that to blow in your face and yet kind of find your way through. And the other is collaboration. You must always be collaborative and be seen to be collaborative. And eventually, finally, also learn to market yourself and your team well.
Oh, yes. Super. Excellent. I think, see, this is the leadership panel we had. Akshat, you want to add up something?
Yeah, I just want to supplement what my co-panelist said. I asked George Burnett that how to develop soft skills. He said, just keep on polishing your hard skills.
Super. That's a good closing line. I think, see, this is the advantage we had with the stalwart panelists we had on the leadership side of the law field. I want to really thank from the bottom of my heart Akshat Khaitan, Corporate and Legal Advisor, founder of AU Corporate Advisory and Legal Services, Deepak Acharya, Group General Counsel, Chief Legal Officer, Aditya Birla Group, Manjari Chaudhary, Senior Executive Director and General Counsel, Maruti Suzuki India Limited, Pathik Arora, General Counsel, Senvion India, Prashant Marathe, General Counsel and VP, Legal and Compliance, Sula Vineyards, Sujit Jain, Chief Legal and Regulatory Officer, NICA. Thank you once again for your learned views, excellent views. You have really boosted the morals on the leadership side. A big round of applause for all the panelists.